Are we on your show or are you on my show?
I assume that you wanted this on your show.
I don't have a podcast, Brian.
You don't have a show. Then it's going to be on mine.
I'm hanging out with Brian Massey. This is golden time for me. I'm super excited because Brian is rare. This is special. This is a man who's dedicated decades of his life to understanding why people do and don't take action within a digital experience. I am more of a digital strategy generalist. I pay a lot of attention to both traffic and conversion, search optimization and conversion optimization, cheese and mousetrap.
Both ends of
And
the equation. It's the most
mhm,
powerful place to be.
I'm a dual threat marketer, or hope to be. I've learned a lot from you, sir.
And I'm learning a lot from you, especially with, how did you phrase it? This new partner in our marketing and selling efforts. I went to a seminar and there was someone presenting on how the role AI was playing in relationships, and he meant romantic relationships. And his claim was that AI will be the third the third partner in every relationship. And he made a pretty good case for it. But if you expand that, the relationship between your customers and your prospects, between you and your customers, yeah, AI is going to be playing a third role in a much more significant way than Google has been.
I believe that that is true today, although it's not necessarily a common experience, and that it will be much, much more true tomorrow. And thinking through that, what we quickly conclude is that we need to, as brands, train AI to be sales reps for our companies by giving it enough detail to help the AI user decide whether or not we're a good option and not miss any chances to inform it by publishing in places that get ingested on what we do, who we do it for, how well we do it, what are the proof points that we do it well, who does the work, what are their credentials, what are the outcomes. And the reality is today that most websites don't do a great job of training AI on the all the decision criteria for their prospect and all the supportive evidence for their brands. So it's a moment in time now. It's the
Mhm.
right time to begin this work of thinking of our websites as knowledge sources for AI and training tools on our brands to help disqualify the wrong prospects and better qualify the right ones.
And
I'm
that, I think,
seeing,
is an important rub. The mistake we make so many times when we're doing marketing communications is trying to please everyone, and not when you take a stand as a brand, you're also taking a stand in terms of who's not right for you. You're walking away from certain people, and this terrifies business owners and marketers. So they always kind of add things back in to, like, oh, well, maybe these people would like to join our tribe or become a part of our thing. And so you end up communicating less well with the people that really are moving your business.
tough decisions. That's what marketing's about. I think analytics is people who are watching this in their analytics are already seeing this. AI is a very small percentage of total traffic, but the conversion rates from AI are very high relative to
Mhm.
other channels because the person who came from AI probably had a conversation over long minutes with a series of prompts, giving it detailed information about the goals, the problem, the context. So when they do land, they seem to be entering in sort of farther down the funnel. Do you agree?
I don't have any data that would bear that out. So the answer is I don't know. And I always try to make sure that I'm not pontificating unless I've got some reason to believe that what I'm pontificating about is true. I have a working hypothesis that kind of says that we are interested in the first answer. So AI, especially in like a search context, AI explains something a little bit to us, gives us a succinct answer that answers all the questions that were in our head over and over and having that experience. The influence of things like TikTok, where it's short videos that make a point, doing it in an interesting way. I don't want to say that our attention is shrinking, but we are more and more looking for quick answers, something that sounds reasonable enough. And so the reason I bring this up is because I wonder, are people having long conversations with AI when they're making decisions? Perhaps in business to business, like we're in, but are they? Will they continue to be? And then eventually you'll just tip off an agent and say, hey, go and find this answer for me and tell me which products you would recommend and go back to, I guess, watching TikTok.
Well, in that use case, if the AI or the agent is already well trained on you, then the conversation may be quite short. What happens, I assume, much more often in B2B is that people are sort of are taught or are learning prompting best practices where you start with the role and the goal and the output or what you the instructions. So there is some data that shows that the average prompt length is much, much longer than the average query length.
I believe.
Yeah, and that the here I will pull this up quickly. This was some research by SEMrush, and they use clickstream data, which is basically spyware. It's kind of creepy, and it's strange to me that anybody allows their clickstream data to be recorded. But people do, and there's enough of the data that they can publish some with some confidence. The average length of a Google query is 4.2 words. The average length of a prompt is 23 words.
Really? I have not seen that research. My own behaviors have changed when I'm prompting. I basically prompt Google as if I'm going
Mhm.
to be talking to the language model. Like I want to give it enough information that the language model gives me that AI summary.
Yeah, I think that the inputs are bigger and in some ways the outputs are shorter because it's going to boil it off to a smaller set because you asked for something that had 7 criteria.
Hmm.
You know, I'm looking for a web development company in the Chicago area that specializes in B2B lead generation websites and understands search optimization. And they've worked with companies in my industry and they have evidence that they can achieve these outcomes. So that's voice search. When that came along, people got really excited about language processing and how things match. Now, for sure, this is a moment when people are putting a lot more language in
Hmm.
and expecting a smaller output because they want just the specific thing.
Hmm.
Hybrid minivan with 3 rows and under 60K that does you can't really get good multi-parameter search outcomes from Google. It's not good for those super detailed queries.
No, and I think the thing that we're learning to kind of go back to your original question is those of us that have put a lot into our websites over the years are faring very well. So one data point I have is just in our own sales process. Almost across the board, people say they found us on Google, which would either be organic placements or ads that we run. I've gotten a couple of AI recommended yous, which is it's telling. So I'm glad that I've been blogging since 2006 and that's the way we go to market. We've always gone to market around teaching. Do you think that the things that we put on our website today are being used to train the language models? Or is it going to be those people that ask for one of these deep research investigations, which right now is an option. You have to select deep research on the foundational models, but it might be the default mode before long. It's just going to assume that if you're asking in a search mode that you're wanting to go out and read all these websites and digest them and et cetera. You have a sense for that?
Yeah, I think either way, one of the questions is how does AI know what it knows about our brands? Anyone can confirm that AI is reading their own website to learn about their brand. Put in any brand, any company name. What do you know about conversion sciences? And it will give me a lot of data and it'll have the citations there, and your website will be the vast majority of them. So it's clear that AI is ingesting our pages. It needs to. It's doing that. That's how it works, is the whole internet. Now, if you move up the funnel and you pretend to be not yet brand aware and say, I'm looking for a company that does conversion optimization for e-commerce websites. I think I have a mobile conversion problem. I'm wasting money. Can you recommend 3 companies? Then either you're in the mix or you're not. But either way, you can see what AI thinks these brands are strong at and weak at, and then address that in your content. Each of us has the opportunity to plug holes or to remedy gaps and misconceptions in AI training data by simply updating our own content and telling it, no, actually, conversion sciences has a strong background in mobile conversion, and here's the research in our articles and our publishing. So you just have to make these messages more prominent to better train the AI to recommend you. Anyone can do that. It's just not really a typical marketing activity yet. So this is, I think that the importance of websites changes. People are doing, like you said, deep research where they're making more of the decision prior to touching a brand's corporate site. But there's a new importance of websites, which is that they are feeding AI and that it is your best chance to tell your full story and who you do it for and how well you do it and where you do it and what your credentials are. So as the channel changes, the importance of these assets of ours change slightly, but that I still believe that this is your own digital property is the only place where you have unlimited time and space to put data into the AI knowledge sources, and that the specific data that should go in there is the data that addresses the perceived gaps within AI of your offer in the context of your competition.
I would agree with that. The flip side of that, though, is like what I hinted at, these agentic AIs. Are they going to, are you going to be more effective if you give them something other than pages? Will there be APIs? Will there be MCP clients? Will there be LLMs.txt that takes your entire website and summarizes it sufficiently so that reading 900 pages of my website every time somebody asks about conversion optimization doesn't seem particularly feasible, although the technology is pretty amazing. So, what do those things look like? I mean, the most helpful thing I've seen is what you're telling us to do, and that is make our pages better. Think about all those sites with stock photos on them. Absolutely
Hmm.
unhelpful to AI. Swapping those out, putting words into them, things like that. We've been
Hmm.
railing against stock photos for 13 years
I've
probably.
heard it before. I love it.
And now I kind of have some moral high ground because happy people
Yeah.
standing around a laptop laughing doesn't tell AI anything about you.
Well, I'm not sure yet to what extent AI is really looking at those pixels, except for certain types of agents like OpenAI's operator. AI is not rendering the HTML in a virtual browser. When the AI bot, there's different bots, there's agents, and then there's just the crawler. When these AI crawlers come through, they're looking at it the same way Googlebot does. And that actually creates a certain potential issue because let's say for trust's sake and for conversion and deal flow, Brian told me I did it, it worked. I put trust seals on my website. But if AI wants to help connect the user to the most credible provider, does it see those trust seals? If I ask it for an award-winning web design company, it may not be sufficient to just put the images there, even with the alt text. I'm at the point now where I think you should maybe list as text any of those important proof points that may be important for AI training data to help AI guide the next prospect toward you. It just reminds me almost like it's between, like if conversion was for humans and search is for robots, and people did things specifically for humans and specifically for robots, this AI optimization feels like it rides somewhere in between because it's reading everything, it's paying attention to language, it's trying to find best fit, it's sort of thinking like a
Hmm.
human instead of matching like an information retrieval tool, which is Google. But it still needs to understand and access everything and has some of the same limitations of Googlebot and the way the crawl works. So I think that this era will benefit those sort of traffic conversion combo minded people who aren't just adding, keywords and semantic SEO for search, or not just adding persuasion and clarity and conversion elements. The way AI works and AI discovery works, I think it ends up being something in between, a bit of both. That's a poorly formed thought, but I'm working on it.
Yes, it's got my wheels spinning. So it's a little bit of both. Let's take some corner cases. So I think about, especially back in the day when I was blogging, I like to use clever analogies and I would make up fanciful terms around, we're working in a lab and we have this machinery that helps analyze websites and just kind of playing on the science thing. Is that a disadvantage with AI now? Because it will understand the analogies, but it creates something less clear, less AI-like, less here's what they do, here's what they're claiming, and kind of throws that out. Is there going to be a phase in which we want to go and kind of wring out the cleverness, the emotion, the humanness? It would have to be a point at which we're pretty much certain that humans just aren't coming anymore. It's just the bots.
Well, I believe it is true that if you are very concerned about how AI understands your brand and you're adding content to your site specifically to help train AI, that you are deprioritizing user experience, obviously, and brand experience and style and clever copywriting. And you are heavily indexing on extreme clarity and detail and options and pros and cons. And, you're sort of still feeding a mathematical probability matrix. So you're just giving it tons of language. I think that if you were to say, I want to make a page specifically for the AI bot, you would make a page with maximum information and minimal UX.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be the way things are going. A big
It does, but follow that through to the end decision maker, right? AI doesn't spend money. It's going to be your user in the end. And if I did do a search and in a hybrid model like Google AI overviews or in ChatGPT or wherever, and I'm looking for options and it says that's a good option and here's the link and I click the link and I land on a page that looks like sitemap.xml, I may puke on my keyboard and hit the back button. I think you have
hmm
to actually connect the dots still because people, unless they're going to just take the action inside the bot or the agent does it for them, I think that there is a final dot that connects where brand experience will likely still matter for some time to come. Because when AI gives you a citation saying you should talk to Conversion Sciences, this is the number one company, that they're a no-brainer. I looked at everyone. Andy, I know exactly what you need. We've talked for thousands of hours. I'm your
hmm
super agent, and I've picked the right company.
Yeah.
I'd have
You
to have
know,
extreme confidence. I think I still click, right? Do I never go to your website?
as I do the thought experiment, I'm kind of looking out in time in which the human UX of a web page becomes less and less important, which has huge implications for my business, of course. But I consider that a pessimistic use case. Kind of following on your thought just then was the language models, our AIs are going to know a lot about us. And so if they know that humor is important to me and I've been using humorous analogies in my content,
Hmm.
AI is going to pick that up. So it gives me an edge. And if somebody's looking for a very stodgy, straightforward, sciencey sort of approach, they should probably opt out. I don't think they should, but since AI is going to be helping so much and we just have all the customers that we want, then I want the ones that don't mind a little bit of humor in the mix.
The same way that hiring managers look for culture fit in job candidates.
Exactly. So I'm not gonna apologize for any of that. And I don't have any plans to go back and change all of that. But I do think about as we have improved our SEO game over the years, the content stopped being fun. It became this recipe for how many keywords you're using and at what point, and the opening paragraph has to have these things in it, and the headline, the title of it has to guide the bots to exactly what's going on in this article. It's smart. Arguably, that may now be working against us.
Here's a meta example. So, an article I just wrote called How to Get AI to Recommend Your Brand. I'm an did keyword research. Looks like a pretty good phrase. Optimize for AI mentions. That's the key phrase. Optimize for AI mentions. I run it through a tool. The tool gives me a low score. To improve my score, I should add these words and phrases. I gave it a very light touch, but quickly abandoned the exercise because the tool is recommending phrases that take it off topic. It was recommending a lot of phrases about specifically Google's AI overview. That's not really what my article's about. So I did a little bit and then turned it off because I'm writing for a human and there's more to life than search. I really am only half, maybe fewer of my articles are optimized for search. And I would
Wait a
never,
minute, is that true?
for sure. Yeah.
I
Scan
would
through
have
the blog. It's not most. Search, it's the click-through rates from Google to articles has been decimated because people are getting their answers directly in search results. And that's a long story, right? Featured snippets, people also ask box knowledge panels, and now AI overviews. So I get 10x the visibility from my LinkedIn newsletter than I do from appearing in search results for my articles. Search today is mostly about ranking for the commercial intent key phrase for the visitor that still yet has visit website intent. The top of funnel information intent key phrases are not a sustainable place to be. Bad news for media companies and big publishers. But but there's still lots of phrases where the visitor has visit website intent. I mean, no one's going to hire a web design company before they look at the portfolio. So the crash in click-through rates is mostly for top of funnel info intent phrases that brought visitors to articles. It's less important than ever to optimize an article for a key phrase. It's more important than ever to optimize your sales and service pages for traditional search and AI. And then to win anyway, focus on some other channels, people. Where's your where's your email game? How good are you at social? Got some YouTube? YouTube wants to promote you. LinkedIn wants to promote articles. Google does not want to promote your article. It's a zero revenue click for them. So
And Reddit is all over the training data.
yeah, yeah. You're training the AI anyway when you publish in other places.
Broad topics, the educational topics versus the bottom of the funnel. And we've actually been completely focused just on, what we call the commercial terms, the things that indicate somebody is looking for a conversion optimization agency. We haven't, for
Good.
over a year, have not been focused on that. A decision by my partner. So he must have had some interesting foresight into that.
Well, I mean, I think all marketing should start from the bottom up. And talking to a CRO pro is fun for me because, a lot of people just get excited about top of funnel or short form video and, you know, thought leadership, good things I love. But if I only had an hour a month to do marketing, I'd be optimizing my calls to action for higher click-through rates, or my sales pages for better clarity, or finding friction in my contact form. Go to the very end of the process. I think it's conversion is a chain, and if there's a weak link at the end, nothing else you do matters. So use data to find the weakest link, strengthen that link, and better optimizing your blog posts is not it's the 48th link at the far end of the chain. I hope you've done everything else first before you try to rank for that information intent key phrase.
Mhm. Yeah, and to my earlier point, that may be that may be the best expression of what your brand is on the internet until they start digesting YouTube videos and presentations and things like that.
Well, here's a quick and maybe final tip. I think that Gemini has a very strong play in AI, and people are thinking a lot about market share of the models. Google owns YouTube, and they have every right to train on all that language. And I
Hmm.
assume they will soon if they're not yet. I'm sure they already have. So
Certainly
anyone
on
that
the
wants to,
transcripts, yeah.
they got all the transcripts. It's just outdated. It's text already. If anyone wants to add one more place where they can inject into the AI training data what their company does and how well they do it and who they do it for and where they do it and what the outcomes are, I suggest that anybody on any podcast or video that will get transcribed give their elevator pitch. Say what you do and who everyone YouTubers should be practicing this, right? Anyone on podcast shows. I'll let you, Brian. What does conversion sciences do?
What does conversion sciences do? Conversion sciences believes that conversion optimization is getting the most out of every visitor to your website. It can be sales, can be growing your list, can be whatever moves your business forward, generating leads, increasing the average order value. And we design experiments that help us understand how to do that.
So that gets transcribed, that gets ingested, and now there is yet one more place on the internet, one more point of evidence that you are a brand that does that in those ways. So I think that's the type of thing that marketers will think about in the future. And what I'm doing now, could this have any influence on the training of an AI? If so, should I tweak it slightly? Yes. How? Just put those words in there. Done. Move on. What's next? Strange?
Well, I am kind of trying to wrap my head around what all of this means. So we've had a conversation here for a while. It sounds like what we're recommending is optimize only for those terms that indicate somebody is at the bottom of the funnel. Let the rest of it be as it is because it might influence AI to understand your brand personality, better than any landing page usually does, and help you find people who are a much better match because it knows them as well, the third person in every relationship. It also indicates that maybe it's time to start having more fun with your content so people understand what you're about. That's what I took away from this conversation.
I love that. One last thing I'll add is just the timing of this. We are in August of 2025. I think we should have this conversation again and see how it's changed. I want to follow this carefully. I want to listen to this again
Hmm.
or give it to a tool that synthesizes it or summarizes it for us. And I want to compare what we said today to what evolves as common practice in the future because some of this was speculation, but I think we were pretty grounded. I think this was good. I feel good about this.
I do too. Yes, and just for an opportunity to sit in this little digital room with you and share ideas, that's enough reason for me.
Regardless of whose podcast this is. This was great. Thank you, Brian, for the conversation.
Thank you.